internet, and welcome to a particularly beefy, steroid-infused, manly episode of Screen Peeves. There are many strange trends that have emerged throughout Hollywood's history, and they're usually dictated by monetary success, and that must be the only determining factor for the movies I want to discuss today, because they are absolutely terrible, and I can't think of a single redeeming quality for any of them. They're just a stark representation of the same regurgitated, unimaginative dross that gets rolled out year after year. Ideas which could have once been considered original and innovative that have now been recycled so carelessly that they've been pounded into the ground like the suspicious burger contents from a roadside restaurant. Now generally this is just how influence and inspiration works, and I obviously have no issue with creators taking an existing idea and reinterpreting it, provided that it is a new interpretation. Expanding on other people's ideas and adding different elements into the mix is how we advance the medium and sometimes arguably create something else entirely. A narrative example of this would be the badass and child duo trope, in which a typically serious, stern character unwittingly winds up responsible for the well-being of a usually orphaned child. The earliest example of this that I'm aware of is True Grit, which sees John Wayne as the cantankerous, crooked old bounty hunter Rooster Cogburn, employed by the sharp-witted and charmless young Mattie Ross, who's seeking revenge for her father's murder. Badass and Child typically focuses on the juxtaposition of the battle-hardened sourpuss and an otherwise innocent youngster, and how their differing perspectives of the world creates an environment where both characters can learn and grow from their shared experience, needing to trust and rely on one another to survive and overcome the narrative's obstacles, the child letting go of some of their innocence and the adult recapturing some of theirs. This trope has been reworked countless times, and I'm sure you can already think of other examples, but it's important to note that the only interpretations that were any good subverted elements of this idea to give it a new lease of life, such as Terminator 2, which repositions the story's antagonist as the badass, who has now been tasked with protecting the saviour of humanity. Or Leon, which has the child take on more of a protege role to learn how to become a deadly assassin so that she can enact revenge for her family's murder herself. Or Logan, which innovated by combining elements of the classic Western genre with those of a modern superhero movie, delivering a refreshing take on both simultaneously, whilst also subverting the trope by making the child character a badass, and the lead an aging, fallible hero. But the focus of today's video is a bit of a spin-off from the badass and child duo trope, and something I personally like to refer to as the Beefcake Babysitter, whereby a giant, throbbing, testosterone-riddled, no-nonsense, macho action guy who is usually some sort of self-flating authority figure is tasked with the grueling duty of childcare.
Get off me!
No amount of training could have prepared them for their most challenging mission yet, claims the synopsis for every single one of these movies. I can't help but imagine that these are the work of some jealous, spindly, pasty executives who felt emasculated by the mere existence of other men who take care of themselves physically, so they find ways to trick these poor actors into starring in movies which are nothing short of ceremonial embarrassment. Perhaps if these pathetic twat executives bothered to take better care of themselves, they wouldn't need to resort to such treacherous tactics to try and feel superior to others. They could have just got their hands on the Lawnmower 3.0. Yes, that's right, today's muscular video is sponsored by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. I personally like to keep my cheesy dough balls as tidy as possible, and in the past have suffered many a scratch from the rusty kitchen knife I used to use as part of my self-care routine. But no more, gone are the days of nicked nuts and testicular tetanus. Now I can keep myself up to scratch with the Lawnmower 3.0. This third-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce manscaping accidents thanks to Manscaped's advanced skin-safe technology. It's also water-resistant, which means it can be used for grooming in the shower, which upgrades your cubicle from crying piss pod to a marvellous makeover fountain. And it has a battery life of up to 90 minutes between charges, which is great because I was actually looking for something to help me shave my pet mammoth. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code Cynic20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code Cynic20. Your balls will thank you. Is there some sort of unwritten rule, some sort of secret Hollywood initiation which dictates that if you desire to be the big shiny muscle action guy and throw down with the international boogeyman of the week, kicking them in their terrorist/commie dick and javelining a US flag through a stack of baddie corpses standing atop it bearing your greasy rock-hard pecs and bleating out cliche one-liners, you've at some point got to pay your dues by doing a shift babysitting a group of fucking annoying little kids so everyone can laugh at how incompetent you are. Ha ha! Isn't it so funny that the big muscular mountain of a bloke can't handle a few puny little dickhead children? I wonder what absolutely hilarious hijinks they'll get up to in this next basically identical movie. Perhaps they'll slip over something, or get hit in their head, or get actual human shit blasted up their sleeve and into their protective face mask. That's kind of funny on a very feral, basic level. The Beefcake Babysitter trope originated from the god of girth himself, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who first took on a class load of miniature dickheads in Kindergarten Cop, which I'd say is definitely the best entry into this particular genre. Thinking about it, Arnie laid out the entire career blueprint for all Hollywood's meaty muscle men. Firstly, gain notoriety in some kind of physically demanding sport, oiled up with your shirt off, then transfer over to the big screen, oiled up with your shirt off. Then debase yourself by starring in some asinine movie in which you're outwitted, knocked over, covered in shit, and embarrassed by a small group of children, and also possibly still with your shirt off. Then you're allowed to graduate on to being Mr. Big PP action hero, blowing shit up and snogging loads of women, and taking your shirt off. There's also an optional bonus mission later if you fancy a bizarre stint into politics, but that requires you to wear a suit, so not all of them are going to bother with that bit, thank fuck. God forbid if Hulk Hogan managed to attain any kind of political power. The world has gone mad enough, thank you very much. I am of course joking. I have a great deal of respect for Arnold Schwarzenegger. He is an absolute legend and is clearly an extremely hardworking and dedicated chap. He has an undeniably commanding presence and is basically a superhuman. I was actually lucky enough to experience this firsthand when I once spent some time in the same room as him. I briefly worked at Empire magazine and attended their awards in 2014, at which Arnold made an appearance to collect his special honorary award for contributions to the industry. I didn't actually bother to go and approach him. I was too busy lingering at the bar, annihilating myself with far too many complimentary cocktails next to Will Poulter and the kids from Game of Thrones, desperately trying to ignore how much of a punchable face Jack Gleeson has. But I do believe Arnie's success has to be a testament to how much of a great guy he is, because let's be real, he's not a good actor. Sure, he was the perfect casting for the Terminator, an emotionless object that demolishes everything in its path, but the rest of Arnie's performances seem to just get a pass due to a strange sort of irony. We know he can't act, he knows he can't act, so we don't expect him to act. We just kind of allow him to be shit, and it's fine, because he's massive and people like him. Which translates almost perfectly into my feelings about the first Beefcake Babysitter movie, Kindergarten Cop. Critically, it didn't do particularly well, and while it wasn't pushing any cinematic boundaries, it will always have a very firm place in my heart for how charming...
Good, now we're having fun.
Funny...
My dad is a gynecologist and he looks at vaginas all day long.
and quotable it is.
Stop whining!
These classic quotes were distilled in our collective cultural consciousness back in 2003 when Andrew Bariani uploaded the ultimate Arnie soundboard to the Newgrounds portal, and it quickly became the weapon of choice for budding prank callers all around the pie.
I'm a cop, you idiot!
I'd love to actually see the statistics for exactly how many takeaway restaurants were harassed and tortured by stoned teenagers equipped with this bad boy. I know I was one of them.
Stop it!
Kindergarten Cop does basically what it says on the tin. He's a cop and he's in kindergarten. Hilarity ensues.
Ha 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 ha. Quiet.
A relatively original idea at the time. Arnie is fucking hilarious, be that intentionally or not.
Good morning.
And despite the exceptionally crap acting from the kids and predictable story, it's extremely entertaining, endearing, and provides a lot of value. I didn't want to die while I was watching it, and in fact I'll likely watch it again at some point. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for all these other pathetic knockoff movies that have straight up just stolen this formula and made very little effort to innovate or introduce new ideas, like The Pacifier, with everyone's favourite walking egg, Vin Diesel, which is basically the same premise, but rather than being a detective, this beefcake is a US Navy SEAL who is tasked with protecting a group of kids whose father was recently assassinated. The movie constantly tries to position him as a fool for taking his job too seriously, which is so far from the pulse it's got its fingers up someone else's arse. Rather than thinking, oh shit, our dad was just murdered and we're in immediate mortal danger, the kids just fuck around spurting out-of-date 90s phrases at him.
Whoa! Personal bubble invasion.
And covering him in shit.
Ha ha.
It's extremely crap and unexciting, and the mere fact that it's a Disney-produced movie from the early 2000s means that the action is lackluster and the humour is about as funny as a sleepover in a hospital waiting room. And the oddest part is that Egg's character actually undergoes zero development, and he stays completely the same throughout the entire movie, so where's the moral? That's literally the only thing that live-action Disney movies usually have, and this one doesn't. The Beefcake formula is still being rinsed to this very day, but rather than a detective or a Navy SEAL, this time Dave Bautista is a CIA agent in My Spy. Just slightly altering the exact department of law enforcement that the lead character works for isn't innovation, it's purely cosmetic, like putting on a different shirt to try and regain entry to the awards ceremony after being thrown out for slapping Joffrey in his stupid bastard face. My Spy is another boring, tiresome and pointless movie about a secret agent who finds himself in a series of compromising situations that he could easily work his way out of in a matter of seconds, but instead of doing the completely obvious and simple things to make his life instantly easier, he instead does the really stupid, difficult things to make the film have a duration, resulting in big muscle man fall over, ha ha ha, big muscle man get hit in nuts, ha ha ha. It's 2020 now, getting hit in the nuts is pedestrian shit. I thought we'd all graduated onto shooting men's dicks off entirely. You shot me in the dick! It's the perfect analogy for our current social climate, and it's funny when everyone does it.
Oh, you shot him in the dick.
What the fuck is Dave Barista doing, picking up absolutely bollocks projects like this and fucking Stuber? He's already proven himself to be a more than capable character actor with his great performances in the Marvel Universe and Blade Runner. Dave, please just stop this nonsense. You don't need to resort to debasing yourself by starring in this absolute shite. Well, I suppose at least they didn't dress him up as a fairy. Oh, Dwayne. I mean, sure, The Pacifier, My Spy and Tooth Fairy are completely awful movies, but at the very least Egg Diesel, Dave the Baptist and Dwayne Some Rocks Johnson have tangible screen presence, unlike the horrendously unoriginal Mr. Nanny, which stars everyone's favourite roid-riddled racist redneck Hulk Hogan, whose horrendous hybrid hairdo is somehow both too long and bald at the same time, as if he was the victim of a blowtorch booby trap, or maybe his hat shrunk and the fibres fused to his hair. But this time the beefcake in question isn't a member of law enforcement, but instead an ex-professional wrestler. I wonder how long it took them to come up with that. That one plot element itself is a perfect example for how much of an on-the-nose, low-effort, humiliating movie this is. It's shit on a completely sadistic level, and by far the worst Beefcake Babysitter movie released to date. The physical humour is flat and tiresome and just desperately trying to emulate the success of Home Alone, which was released 3 years earlier, and it's so hard to watch Hogan's piss-poor acting.
You trying to tell me you go to public school?
I've genuinely seen more convincing performances on late night QVC.
But the babes are back.
His dialogue delivery is so devoid of conviction that it actually sucks all the potential out of the supporting cast.
Are you out of your mind? I hate kids.
And makes the movie a painful, arduous task to sit through.
I hate kids!
There's not a single ounce of authenticity to be found in this deceptively long 80 minutes of torture.
Raising kids is the toughest gig I know.
And last but not least, it's John Cena's turn to get thrown around like an oddly disproportioned ragdoll in Playing with Fire, which is yet another retread of the exact same ground covered by all the previous movies in this video, except this time, he's a firefighter. This one is so derivative of the other movies I've mentioned, it offers absolutely nothing new at all. From funny big man covered in poo needs a shower, to funny big man crap at telling a bedtime story, to funny big man on little pink bicycle, even to there being loads of tins of spam in the background. Am I missing a meme here? Why the fuck is there so much spam? I'm not entirely sure why this one is so unbelievably awful when it had far more potential than anything else, with Keegan-Michael Key and John Leguizamo in supporting roles, both of whom are talented comic actors with tons of experience, but somehow were only given the tools to reach about 1% of their true potential with this horrendously boring script, which relies almost entirely on repetition is funny and scat humour. Leguizamo's shtick is that he likes My Little Pony and he always misquotes things, and Key's humour is mostly based in his inability to display an appropriate level of emotion, which opens up an opportunity for some of the most careless and blatantly obvious product placement I've ever witnessed, whereby a packet of Kleenex tissues is brought into frame oriented directly towards the camera on 3 separate occasions. Even when the packet is thrown down from a fucking helicopter, it lands completely straight, logo side up, center frame for everyone to see. Is this entertainment or a fucking advert? As usual, the children's performances are fucking pathetic. I've never seen anyone so utterly bored about being trapped inside a burning building before. Is it really hard to cast kids who are good at acting rather than handing the role to the producer's family friends? I'm absolutely sick of movies suffering at the hands of nepotism. It should definitely strike you as a red flag when the best performance in your movie is from the fucking dog. This movie does the usual falling over affair, haha. But there is one scene that hit me right in the "is this okay" spot of my brain. So the youngest of the orphan children decides to stand there and just straight up shit in her own tights. And her teen sister, who's been her primary caregiver since their parents died months ago, decides to just wander off and disappear, so that two fully grown men, who are complete strangers, can take her 5-year-old sister into another room, lay her down, and undress her. But it's okay, because while they're staring down at her shit-caked lower half, they pull some silly faces and do some gagging. I just don't know. I'm about 99% certain that this isn't okay. Sure, if the character was actually a baby in a diaper, that would kind of be okay, but I don't know, just something about this doesn't sit well with me. It's also definitely not okay later in the movie when John Cena pulls down his trousers and squats to take a shit in the woods whilst holding the 5-year-old directly in front of him. All of these films have a bit of an odd undertone to them, with these massive muscular strangers becoming a little too familiar with children they aren't related to.
I think you're cute.
Thank you.
I do agree that you can obviously develop a platonic love for children who aren't blood relatives, but that doesn't usually happen over the course of a single evening, where somehow the straight-laced, no-nonsense, career-focused brute goes from having his life and career in order and being dead set on what he wants to do with his life to getting shit blasted in his face, and then all of a sudden deciding, yes, he wants to adopt 3 children and marry that woman he's been on one date with. I just don't understand who these movies are intended for. They spend far too long dealing with the utterly dull, everyday plight of the lead adult, steeped in boring-ass themes that a child would absolutely not give a shit about, like their woeful sex life or potential job promotions, and the humour is so middling and sterile that most adults won't find it engaging either.
Friendship is magic.
The only potential target audience I can possibly think of for these movies is exhausted mums, who can sit there and shut down for a few hours while their kids are distracted by a movie that feels vaguely like entertainment, allowing them a fighting chance to recover from a life filled with answering inane questions and being harassed non-stop by the miniature leeches they found themselves legally responsible for. Meanwhile, the movie presents no challenges, with nothing worth thinking about at all, and just offers the occasional glimpse of a sculpturesque half-naked man to give the mums a short rush of blood, just to ensure they don't slip into a coma after sitting down for the first time in weeks. They can just spend a brief moment basking in the fantasy of a strapping, gorgeous man coming into their life and helping them out for a change. Or to be honest, the strongman's involvement might just be secondary to the true fantasy that, like in the movie, they, the real parent, has in fact died, and now some other complete lummox has to deal with their stupid fucking asshole kids. Subscribe to my fucking channel. Thanks. Just a quick one to say that the merch pre-order is now closed and all of your orders will begin shipping over the coming weeks, so huge thank you to everyone who managed to bag themselves something cool and help support the channel, and don't worry if you missed out, I'll be releasing more things in the near future, so thanks, I'll see you in the next one.